Hey YouTube, welcome back to the channel. At the time of the making of this video, it's been nearly a month since Crytek deployed patch 1.5.1, bringing skill-based matchmaking to Hunt Showdown. A patch like this is difficult to immediately assess because its effects are felt over weeks rather than just days. So we needed a little bit more time to make a full judgment of what kind of impact this was going to have on the game and the community. So what do I think about this new patch? I'm just going to come out and say it. This is one of the most consequential patches that has ever been deployed to Hunt. It's made matchmaking very restrictive, and as a result, the game is less fun, boring, exhausting to play, especially for high and mid-skilled players. I really hope something changes in the future. Now, before I get attacked in the comments below, which I'm probably gonna get attacked anyways, let me state that I believe that some form of skill-based matchmaking should be in Hunt. When I first started playing Hunt, I was a low-skill Andy, just like many of you. I went through the process of getting good, and I know the pain of new players. I don't think it's fair that newer players get matched up against seasoned veterans just to get stomped out of the game. New and low-skilled players have neither the experience nor the skill when they first start, and they should be given room to develop their skills before they're forced to compete against higher-skilled players. While it's not fair to make new players play against high-ranked players, it's also not fair to force high and mid-skilled players, many of whom have supported this game from its launch, to have to be miserable every game and to have every fight be a white-knuckle, intense fight for their lives, when all that they're looking to do is just relax with their friends and play their favorite game, as they have done for about 3 years now. Skill-based matchmaking, and is currently implemented in Hunt, has segmented the player base into essentially two queues: a low-skilled queue and a high-skilled queue. Skill-based matchmaking, as it is currently implemented, allows low-skilled players to dodge high-skilled players. There's no incentive for lower-skilled players to turn this option off. For higher-skilled players, having skill-based checked or unchecked really doesn't make a difference, since all of the lower-skilled players have already been removed from the potential pool of players. Higher-skilled players are pretty much, most of the time, going up against other high-skilled players. This results in a lot of matches where players are constantly playing against the same people every match, and queue times have become extremely long. Because of the increased intensity, fights at higher levels have become very repetitive. Dolches, long ammo are the normal in high-tier play. I know that the developers have said that the Dolch is only picked by 2% of players, but at higher skill levels, it feels like there's at least 3 or 4 Dolches every single game. And players have no choice but to run these loadouts because the intensity of the matches has just increased so dramatically. One of the things I loved about Hunt was the variety of weapons you can run and be successful with in-game. But now, experimentation is just so risky, it's not worth it. This has made the gameplay very predictable, and it's, quite frankly, really boring. The strategies people use at high levels are also really stale. High-skilled players will always push towards fighting and rarely play the objective. To win in Hunt at the highest tiers, you either have to be a complete rat or you have to try and third-party as much as you can. Most matches are done within under 10 minutes because an all-out brawl takes place at the start, and the winner is just the last team to arrive so that they can kill the other teams while they're recovering. This is very boring. 1.51 was also implemented without giving really anything in return to the high-skill community. Now imagine you're a high-skilled player for a moment and you've invested about 3 years in the game. You worked hard to get good at Hunt, most of your friend base is around the game, and you spent thousands of hours in it. And suddenly, through no action of your own, your gameplay experience completely changes. The game you've known and loved for thousands of hours is just exponentially more difficult, and you're giving nothing in return for it. Your games are just harder now, and you just get to deal with it. As a veteran player, you would justifiably feel upset. All you did was love and play the game it was laid out, and now it feels like you're being isolated from the rest of the player base because you're some kind of problem to new players. Something needs to be done for this part of the community to keep them engaged in the game as well. 1.51 has also greatly affected who you can play with. I'm fortunate to have a lot of amazing friends around the Hunt community, and they all have varying skill levels. Some of my friends are much more skilled than I am, but when I group with them, we're thrown into the high skill bracket and lose most of the matches because we're being paired against very, very high skilled players. The same goes for when I play with friends who are lower skilled than I am. This is probably the worst impact that 1.5.1 has had on the Hunt community. It's horrible that friendships are put under strain because players can't go into Hunt and just have fun hanging out with their friends who are of varying skill levels. In the past, it was possible to play with your friends because the skill levels would vary from game to game. But now, some friends just end up being a liability to you, or you're a liability to them. This fraying of friendships around Hunt is also going to have a negative effect on the long-term health of the game, especially for a game as small as Hunt. Social fabric is really important. I remember playing this game when there was only 2,000 to 3,000 people actually playing the game. It was a hardcore group that kept the game going until we could get more content. But if those groups start to fray away, who are we going to rely on to keep the game going when we go through content drought? The net effect of 1.5.1 is that we just have a ranked queue in Hunt now. and only a ranked queue, even if it's not called that. There's just no way to play and enjoy bounty hunt without constantly struggling and getting little to show for this new level of difficulty. Morale is at an all-time low, especially amongst the veteran player population. Many veteran players that I have spoken to have begun to move on from hunt. Now, I get that most of what I've set down is not going to be popular with the casual or low-skilled crowd in hunt. I get that. I'm willing to take the criticism, as long as it's reasoned and civil. But let me reiterate, this is not an attack on low-skilled players or new players. As a low-skilled player or a newer player, you have the right to enjoy hunt. I want you to enjoy hunt. I absolutely love this game, and I really want you to enjoy it as much as I do. But the matchmaking, as it is currently implemented, is really only looking at one side of the equation. What I would like to see is the implementation of a casual queue and a ranked queue. A casual queue should be something like the old matchmaking system. This takes the pressure off, and it lets players of any skill play with anyone they want. They can experiment with loadouts, and we can have fun again. The ranked queue should have this current skill-based matchmaking so that people that enjoy that system can still play in it, and they can see the progression of their skill rising. Ranked should always reward players for the increased difficulty. If lower skilled players feel that they are outmatched in casual queue, they can go to ranked and be matched up against people of comparable skill and improve their skills there. Ranked and casual queues work in many other games like Rainbow Six, Rocket League, and Apex Legends. To those of you who are thinking it's impossible for us to have 2 queues in hunt because it would, quote, split the player base or queue times would be too long, my response to you is that this is already happening with the current system. So if we're willing to accept these issues now, why not in the context of a more rewarding system that recognizes everybody's needs, not just of a certain subset? I'm glad that Crytek listened to the community and implemented some kind of system to help new and low-skilled players find their footing in hunt, but I hope that they're going to listen to the veteran population as well. I also don't expect that 1.5.1 is going to be the only iteration of skill-based matchmaking we see in hunt. There are plenty of games out there that struggle to get matchmaking right. Dead by Daylight constantly struggles with trying to get their lobbies correct. I think this is going to be an ongoing process, and I look forward to changes in the future. To finish, I'll say this yet again. I don't object to skill-based matchmaking, but its current implementation has had mostly a negative effect on hunt in a lot of ways, in my opinion. With 1.5.1, the long-term player base and the highly skilled community is suffering negative effects without much consideration given to them. While a lot of low-skilled players in the player base are better off than they were before, as they rise in skill, they too will start to suffer the same struggles. Skill-based matchmaking is having plenty of unintended consequences when it comes to relationships in the hunt community, and much of the fun and experimentation is being removed in favor of meta builds to deal with the increased difficulty of matches. Having 2 queues ranked and casual and getting rid of the skill-based option would go a long way to alleviating many of these concerns. I want to thank you for listening, and I know that this is a controversial subject, so when you get into the comments, just take a minute before you decide to send something out. Remember, we all have our opinions, and let's show some respect and build towards a positive solution for this problem. Thanks for listening, and happy hunting.